Hello all, I am here to report on session 60 of Dragon Age RPG. 60 sessions, guys, can you believe that we've managed it? It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Right, the guys didn't even realise that this was session 60, but they certainly went ahead and made it memorable nonetheless. So here's where we kicked off. It's the continuation of Blacksand. There's this book, and they had found out where the thieves' den was, the thieves' guild, and they were going to go pay them a visit. That's obviously being their best lead. Go have a talk to Rannick, or maybe the Kobasi brothers, if they are now in charge and have taken over. But you know how sometimes when the story is there and the game is there and the plot is there and that all the players really want to do is just derail it? That was today. That was really today. And you know, the dangerous thing is that I let them. I wanted to let them feel they had the freedom to go where they want and do what they want. So we did that, and they started off with an opportunity to see Madame Star, the clairvoyant. They kicked off the session right outside her tent. They decided not to go in. They did figure they might be missing something, but I don't know. They decided not to do it. Then the next thing was they got around to this idea of just heading straight onto the thieves' base. Now, here's the problem. They'd pissed off a certain pirate in Freeport. Okay, let's get serious. Scarbelly. Now, they had one close encounter with Scarbelly arriving here. They just about managed to avoid his ship on the way. However, Scarbelly didn't want to give up at that, and he's not letting his crew go out and do their piratey business until these guys are dead. They have been humiliated. Back when they cut the ship free in Freeport, you know, they cut the rigging, and the thing just like pulled out, still only like half attached to some of its rigging, pulled out like that, and just left them looking stupid. Even children were laughing at them. And when you are one of the top 10 pirate lords, you're supposed to be feared, and your reputation is everything. And the party, made fools of them. So that wasn't going to live down. He wanted them dead, and it started to become an obsession to Scarbelly. So he's in the city looking for them. And had they gone to the clairvoyant, they would have had the opportunity maybe to realise that he was after them. But they decided to push on anyway, and as they were going through a relatively busy street with carts and stalls and people milling about, up ahead they saw 3 ruffian types standing in the street, blocking in the very centre of the street, with their eyes on the party members. The guys were saying, hey up, right, look what we've got here, trouble. And they started looking around, and they saw that on the left there were some alleyways. An alleyway further up and an alleyway closer. Both of them turn off to the left, right? So Tanadol and Tanadol and Ashard decide they're going to head off to an alleyway. And Tanadol brings Harold, his red lion, with him. So they make a break for it, and they run round into the first alley nearest them. Meanwhile, these other 3 guys start sort of walking towards the group menacingly. This was the start of an ambush, a trap, an attack from Scarbelly's men. Obviously, that isn't in Blacksand. The players bring their own problems to the table additionally. But who'd have ever thought that this one showdown was going to cause so much much trouble. So, here's what happened next. Karak and Amelia, and we eventually had Dre as well. The player hadn't turned up at this point, so he was being kept back. He's off. I don't know what he's doing. Who knows? I don't care. And Karak fires a rock at him, hits him with the old stone thing, smacks it straight in his face. You know, these are fairly weak guys, and you know, it caves his face in, and he goes flying backwards and falls down dead. The others turn around and go check on him, and they realise, geez, the guy's dead. Meanwhile, you know, Amelia and Karak are holding their position and staring them down the street. And people have already reacted. Oh gosh, and all this going on. Right, now back to the alleyway, where the guys, Tanador and Ashad, have broken off, and they're trying to get round and come behind the thugs. They kind of played into their hands, because the plan was to get the group to push forward, follow them, and then they were going to run back into the other alley, try and draw the group in, at which point the buildings at the end where they just went in, the rooftops were lined with crossbow pirates, and all the other buildings in that alley that runs up towards that way had like rooftop assailants too, and melee fighters ready on the ground. So it was a pretty nasty ambush with other elements available. So what was going to happen was, the intent was to draw them around, get them into that section, and then effectively get round the other side and cut them off, trap them in. But because the group had gone in that way and was still covering here, you know, they had eyes on everything still. So the pirates didn't quite get their own way, but they were determined to see this attack go off. And they, as soon as Tanador and Ashad were committed some way down this alleyway that turns and runs then parallel with the main road, so it's the other side of it here, down here, you know, they launched all their attacks from the rooftops, you know, the bolts coming down, and then, who was it, Aggro came in, the first mate. You know, these are pirates from the Freeport stuff, you know, by Green Ronin, who have been brought over and statted up for age. Pretty cool, right? So Aggro tries to run straight in and tries to stab Ashad, and manages to try and defend himself and push him away with his shield, and runs for his life. Yet him and Tanador, you know, they start taking all this fire and almost get skewered. They stick their backs up against the wall underneath the building to try and minimise incoming fire. But obviously when the melee fighters run round as well to engage them, they don't want to get bogged down. They know they're cut off from their team back around waiting in the main street. So they start falling back. Meanwhile, the thugs start pushing forward. And as Ashad and Tanador come back out of the alley into the main street again, the thugs have caught up with them, and you know, they jump on them. At this point, Amelia and Karak surge forward to try and catch up with their own teammates, so they are roughly together again. Aggro at this point then pours out of the alley with men behind him with him. They start, you know, kicking the asses of the last two guys waiting in the main street. More guys start appearing at the end of the street down that end, on the rooftops and stuff, as well as Old Yellow Eye, another Talvashoth, and he's like a crossbow specialist type geezer, and another one of the, you know, the pirates, the named. There's always that mentality, isn't there? Oh, we've beaten named. Any fat loots on him? Unfortunately, not a computer game, you know, just a bit of silver. That's all they would maybe have on them, and obviously the weapons they were using. So, but obviously, you know, you're specialists anyway. You know, you're killers. You do this for a living. You wouldn't just use any old piece of tat you find, would you? You'd use the one that you're comfortable with. You know, It's, there's the saying, this is my gun, there are many like it, but this is mine, and that goes a long way, doesn't it? Really, you get used to a piece of equipment, you become proficient in particular with it. Anyway, pushing forward, they start firing their crossbows down the street at them, and they're trying to take cover against that fire. And obviously, Dan Nedge isn't really like, oh, I've got a crossbow bolting me, I pull it out, and this sort of like nonsense. If a crossbow bolt skewered you, it's going to be a pretty bad situation. You're not going to be able to like get up and counter-attack and do all this. You're going to be like, like that. Okay, so it's best to look at it as hit points. Your bubble of invincibility is shrinking. It's shrinking. It didn't really hit. It whizzed right past you. You managed to sort of exert yourself just enough to avoid it. I've said this time and time again. I can't say it enough times that that's how these things should be. That's what HP is. It's hit points. The chance of you getting hit. You've exerted yourself, and that's where your hit points have gone down. The HP losses as a sort of fatigue, or your luck running out on you, or whatever you want to call it. It's an abstraction in a way. So anyway, that fire coming in, and then a floating head of a floating head of Kunari, just awful, with a mask and chains hanging from it, severed head. So it was being used basically as a viewing conduit by the human mage female Isindrin, who is part of the crew, believe it or not. And she was up on one of the rooftops giving like support fire, putting out like arcane bolt fire, which is really, really poor to attack level 10s with, but that's the best she had. She's more of a support type mage thing. And there was this roaring coming from the alleyways as well, which was Scarbelly himself, and he really meant business this time. Not at sea this time, you see. He can't cut his riggings free on land. But they were sure gonna still try. We'll get to it all. So the group are fighting brilliantly, putting these pirates down one after the other. Some of the other pirates are coming around the side, trying to scamper down drain pipes to join in the fight. Carrick's getting out these mine blasting here, mine blasting there. Sees the guys coming down the drain pipes, mine blasts them. They all plummet and smash. Nasty falling damage. Kind of lying there in broken heaps, saying, I don't want to carry on. And they knock aggro out. Yellow Eye starts, running up the street and firing bolts at them, and they counter-fire and knock him down. And he just sort of like lies there in pain. And so he's dealt with for now as well. And then the leader appears at last, Scarbelly. And he's got this huge big satchel he's wearing around himself, and it's got these big like button things on it, and it's bulky as hell, but he's bulky as hell. I mean, I know that the Kiseth are really muscular and large, huge frames, but this guy is a particularly frightening specimen of his species. And he appears, and Amelia walks straight up to him and says, what's your problem? What's your beef with this lot? Because remember, she wasn't with the party when all of it happened. It was Gabe there in Freeport. So Amelia, even though they're played by the same player, she doesn't sort of know what the history is there, and she's actually asking. The thing is, though, he only replies back in Kunlat. So, but Ashad can understand, and he sort of tries translating that, these bastards are going to die, and at last I can wrap my hands around them. And it's on at that point, him and Amelia start trading blows. Amelia's seeing him off quite well, actually. And, you know, he's all berserker stance mode, so he's real easy to hit. He's putting out crazy damage, and Ashad manages to engage him. The pirate sort of ads are going down pretty easy. Then something fairly interesting happens. He tried to do his toss aside sort of thing, where he tried to grab Amelia, I think, and throw her, but it didn't happen. It was a strength might v strength might, and then he produced the large bulbous thing he had in his satchel, and that knocked everyone for 6. It was a massive gat lock bomb. Alright? Which the Canary are obviously proficient in. The inventors of, we think. And he had this like cord in his mouth. It kind of looked like a cigar. And it was like hot on the end. And he then put the bomb up to that and lit it with his teeth. And then you realise why he had that in his teeth. And they said, "Oh God, he's trying to take himself out and us with him. Is he mad?" So, you know, he then rushes at them holding this bomb. Oh! Holding it physically and running at them. I mean, how incredible is that? I mean, that's how pissed off he was with them. You know, this is dangerous. This is a dangerous situation, and the team at this point, you know, you've thrown something really unexpected at them, and they're all sort of, you can see them all, they've all like picked up off their seats, and people that were like feeling tired and sleepy, maybe dropping off, and you can see that's bloody woke them up. You know, it's like, whoa, what? So this thing's running at them, and that, you know, they knocked him prone, and he fell over his big chest, absorbed the blow of the bomb onto his chest, but the thing's still ticking down, and I'm counting the fuse and how many rounds that thing has left, keeping that secret from the players, just kind of giving them a rough idea of what the fuse looks like if they can see it. So he pulls himself back up eventually, and the other players decide, screw that, you know what, we're getting away from the bomb. And just previous to that, a force field went up around him, so then it revealed what the plan was, that he was going to hold the bomb out or drop it just sort of like at his feet with its Indrin in support in the distance, using the head as a proximity conduit to cast the floating head, to cast the force field on Scarbelly. And then, you know, when it would blow up, it wouldn't matter how much damage, it would make him invincible to that damage. That was always his plan, to kill the team. It didn't matter where it was. Ultimately, he wanted to bring it onto the ship. Had they engaged him on their ship, he would have brought that bomb aboard, carried it aboard their ship, and blown them sky high, while also on the ship with them. I mean, that's just the nature of the guy. He's a nutcase. You really have to be a bit of one, don't you, in this day and age, to be a pirate. So, anyway, they decided, you know what, screw this, we're running away. And they start running away. He doesn't like the fact that they're going to get away from him. They won't be there if he drops the bomb. So he musters all this great strength and hurls the bomb in the direction they're running, and it lands kind of nice and squarely. I'm really shocked it didn't blow up just from the impact of landing like that, being thrown, but still it didn't engage yet. And, you know, it's landed, and they all, like, a lot of them skid to a halt. At this point, Tanadal realizes, screw this, I'm getting away from here. So he runs the other way, down the street, and hides behind a like wagons, like fruit wagon cart type thing, and with Harold the cat, and the red lion, big cat. So he's hiding because this bomb's about to go off and make a mess of a street. So then they decide we need to get away from that bomb. Karak thinks, I need to try and deal with the bomb. Let's have a look at the fuse. What can I do to it? And starts like weighing up his options. Can I do wind weaving on it? And, the wick is made to counter against being blown out by wind. Let's see what else we can do. And meanwhile, the captain picked Amelia, grabbed her by the throat, and grabbed Ashad by the throat, and hoisted them both off the ground, and decided he was going to carry them to the bomb. And his plan was to carry them over to the bomb. He's that big and strong. Carry them over to the bomb, smash them together, and then smash them straight through the bomb, blowing them up and himself if need be. But his hope would be that Isindrin would be on the ball enough to shield him again with a force field in the nick of time. It all revolved around Isindrin being sharp enough on the uptake. So then, Amelia manages to get out of it. She's too much for him to lift. She wriggles enough, pushes his arm off. She's a very strong girl. And Ashad, not quite so lucky. He's being carried across to the bomb. He's about to smash Ashad through the bomb when Karak's arrived at the bomb. Karak's trying to look down at the bomb and sort of work out, how do I put it out? What am I going to do? He's looking at how to defuse it, but Ashad's about to be smashed through it, and it's going to take Karak up sky high. Karak realizes, okay, I'm going to have to pull out. So he runs away, and then it happens. They say, well, we are going to pretty much all have to leg it. The bomb's about to go off, and they end up managing to knock Scarbelly prone one more time. This time, sending him flying, like I think skirmished or something, onto his own bomb. Did he have a shield up? Did he not? Nobody could see and notice because they were running. They decided quickly as a group, unanimously, to run for the alleyway. So the ones, Tanador was still hiding behind his cart further down the road, but the others quickly made a run for it and tried to get away as fast as they can down that alleyway to break line of sight and put some cover in the way. So they were running down the alleyway, and then there was a huge explosion. Just made a massive crater in the street. It was incredibly just a massive deal. So it hit a lot of the stonework of the corner building and sent a lot of that flying up the alley and like all the way along the alley, the upper stuff, and that was all like falling down and things. And that was doing its own damage too. And that showered down on them, and some of the brickwork acted like a sort of mortar shrapnel, if you like, a secondary knock-on from the blast itself. It wasn't the actual blast itself, but the secondary elements of it. They were taking some damage from that. They managed to pull themselves to their feet and wander back out into the street just to see the wagon that Tanador was hiding behind. Was charcoal now. It rolled a bit forward away. A wheel fell off. It quickly fell like that, and all the stuff that it was containing all started tumbling out into the road. And obviously, it's rolled away, and it's left Tanador and the cat there, just sort of like crouched down with no cover anymore, down the street, just looking up at this crater. Just not too far away from them down the street. They got a bit hot under the collar, but not damaged from it. They were far enough away from the blast, and this thing absorbed quite most of it. And Tanador's too daft to realise he's damaged anyway. That's another problem. That's why it's like I got the title Elector of the Sky. He's too daft to know he's even dead. You know, it would be a terrible thing actually if the player of Tanador, if Jez, did ever actually lose Tanador. I don't know if he'd be able to recover from it. I don't know. But you know, it's possible in this deadly dark world. You know, the party do some bloody dangerous things to themselves. Well, anyway, they couldn't see any trace of Scarbelly, or obviously the bomb. It had gone off and obliterated all remains of itself. If Scarbelly had been lying on it, well, it's obliterated him. They did wonder, maybe there's a shield up, maybe, who knows what's happened to him. Did he do a runner? Did he get away in time? We can't see a thing. So the party sit there in the broken street, taking a breather, and then they see a familiar figure on the rooftop down the way. They see, they work out that it is Squire. Squire! Squire! Squire is watching them. He's back, and Tanador's like, we killed him! And they said, yes, we've killed him many times. And he's always come back. What made you think that last time was going to be any different? Even though, you know, he cut his legs off and did all these things. There he is, Squire. And then he crouched, and then he pulled this like crazy Assassin's Creed maneuver where he jumped off the building all the way across the street to the other building. And that's a pretty big street. And he landed on another part of the building and, you know, quickly scampered his way up pretty fast up that building and onto the roof, and then disappeared away in his own mysterious way. Wow. What the heck? So, stalking the group, watching them. Squire. You never know when he's going to attack, do you? It's like a spider in its web. So, then they decided, well, we need to go on to the thieves' den. That's the thing to do. That would have been the thing to do, wouldn't it, to continue the story? They didn't do that. They didn't do that. So we still really haven't run any scene from the book whatsoever at this point. And they decide they're going to instead head to the docks. They've got no business in the docks, nothing's taking them to the docks, but they want to go there anyway. They're a little bit reluctant about going for this idea, but I said, no, do what you want to do. This is a living, breathing city. You know? Knock yourselves out. They wanted to see if the ship, I think it's called the Bloody Vengeance. That would be an appropriate name if it is. Was still there, you know, and maybe there'd be loot for them to take, because, you know, if the captain was dead, the crew had cleared out. They did see that the crew had scattered in all directions. They thought, well, you know, we'll get back, we'll find the ship, and we'll get on board and take what we liked very much. There's a ship going, or we'll have a ship. That's our ship now, thank you. This is what this group's like. They're crazy. So they go to the docks. But it doesn't work out all that simple for them. Because when they get there, they don't find any of Scarbelly's crew like they were expecting. Nothing like that. None of them are there. Instead, the City Watch are there. The City Watch have turned up. And we know that the City Watch are unscrupulous bunch of bastards. And they block the group from boarding the ship. They say, you can't get on. And Tanador says, why? That's our ship. He says, do you know, this is, do you know what the ship is? And he said, no. He said, well, how can it be your ship if you don't know what the ship is? He said, well, it's our ship now, we killed the owner. And this sort of thing. Which was kind of a silly thing to admit to the City Watch when you think about it. But the other fact is, we are in Blacksand. So if it's not reported as a crime, then admitting to it isn't really going to get you into trouble, because these are Blacksand Watch, and you know they are put in charge to guard against like pirates and really bad miscreants. Basically, you know, if you're too decent a person, you probably couldn't get the job. You'd be at that point, you know, lacking the correct qualifications if you were too law-abiding and just. Okay, so they decide, well, we're going to board, we're going to push our way in, but you know they've already realised that they can't take the city watch on in this way. There's always this thing, isn't there, about the groups wanting to take on the guards of the city and all this manner of stuff, and it's generally always a bad idea for a group to do that, and the GM's normally going to have it set up that terrible punishments will be meted out on those who attempt it, just from vastness of numbers. But you know, the group still wouldn't give up, so they came up with a very funny idea of repeating the procedure that happened back at Freeport to that very same ship. So Tanador quickly runs across the way and takes his greatsword to the roping, the rigging, cuts it free so that one part of it's still attached, and then the ship begins swinging back out again. The guys are like, quick, 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 quick! she's going astray. Get back onto the docks. And at that point, like Ashad and Amelia help sort of kick the gangplank off so that no one can get back off the ship. And they're like watching from the land, and this thing sort of swigs out, and they're stuck now. And one of the guys on the ship is like, look, I'm not a sailor, we're not sailors. Oh, no, do this. And you know, the sergeant says, look, just calm down, all of you. We'll do something about this lot. And they start blowing their whistles in panic. So at this point, that a few whistles go up in response in two different directions. So City Watch will be coming. Good old bone whistles, eh? And Tanner decides, yeah, let's make it funnier, you know. Now at this point, bear in mind, the group has derailed the adventure and blown up a street because of their actions. So they've brought madness and chaos to Blacksand, and that's saying something, because Blacksand regularly hosts chaos. But these are the good guys, so I don't know, kind of, Blacksand's screwed. All their villains are going to say, you know, I don't want no more heroes here, good guys. I'd rather have the villains around me. I feel safer. So, anyway, he decides, I'm going to cut the other rope, so that the thing is completely free. And so it starts kind of slowly just drifting free out of the docks. You know, no more is it tied up. And the guy's panicking, he's saying, oh, we're not sailors, one of the guards on board. Sarge, we're not sailors. And you know, his voice is getting quieter and quieter as it's slowly floating away. The sergeant is shouting all this abuse back at them, and there's panicking, there's running up and down the ship. They don't want to have to dive off. They think they can still, you know, keep control of the situation and get the ship back under control somehow. You know, none of them are proficient at sailing. None of them know what to do. You know, none of them know what they should do. And it was at this point that Carrack decides, I'm going to have some fun. Especially when he realises that there is another ship coming in on a turning arc, trying to come into dock. Oh dear. And its turning arc is coming into where their ship is floating off gently their way, but you know they're still gonna miss it. You know, they're gonna come into dock comfortably. Problem is, Carrack decides to do his wind weaving straight at the sails, so he Hadoukens them with a wind weaving several times, I might add. Pew, pew, and pew, pushes the ship very much more quickly at the other ship. The captain on the other ship suddenly panics. He's kind of coming to dock like this, and there's a ship coming at them, side on, like this. So he starts to try and turn and get away from it, but no, it still collides. He fails his ship mastery thing, basically, his role for it, and it collides. It goes through. I was rolling up for damage. It was doing the ships were doing terrible damage to one another. Terrible stunts and things occurred as a result of the damage that they were quickly. I had to quickly address and work out sort of what was going on. And there were silly things. People on the ship coming in, where the two ships were starting to merge in places where like crushing and crashing. Someone that was on one piece of the ship got transferred over to the other ship, and he's like still. Like sitting on half his chair or whatever still. And the problem was that it pierced the Kunari ship's cannon rooms, the powder rooms, and one of the lanterns from the other ship was unfortunate enough to collide with the area, catch on fire, catch the whole thing alight. It exploded, the next one exploded, the next one exploded. All cannons went up and boom and came flying off up into the air, and just explosion after explosion as both ships just went up. The Kunari ship, the Bloody Vengeance, started sinking really, really fast, and because the other one was connected to it, it started to pull the other one down faster than it would have gone down. So there's these two going down at this point, and it's just absolute chaos. And Carax just seemingly killed all these people on this other ship that was coming in. It wasn't a pirate ship. He didn't have any clue at who was aboard this other ship. I shouldn't even be laughing, but it's wickedness, isn't it? Pure wickedness that he would even think to do that. He wanted to cause mayhem there, and they did it. So they've blown two ships up and blown up a street at this point, and possibly killed one of the most dangerous pirates in the world. And not bad for an afternoon, but there was still need for some more chaos to occur. So yeah, finally the City Watch had appeared, and Carrack managed to talk the group's way out of it, saying, "Look, something happened when they were aboard that ship. It's it's going off that way. I don't know what's going on. You're going to have to look into it." They started blowing their whistles, but no one was here to help them in time. So we're witnesses to it, and no one was able to testify in that time. No one really wanted to, seeing what had just happened and how nuts this group are. So then at this point they decided, right, let's scarper, let's carry on, let's get on over to where we've got to go. So then they decide to head for the Thieves Guild. Yeah, the Thieves' Den. And this is where the shit really hits the fan. I know that sounds surprising, based on what has already happened, but that is stuff happening to other people and happening around the group. This is where internal affairs really go to hell. This is great. This is just okay. So they get to the building. It's a huge sort of like almost a single room kind of barn looking thing. It's all made of primarily wood, like 95% wood type thing. And they decide we're going to open the door and just kind of wander in. So they do that, and they decide, oh, we're not going to commit ourselves too much to this room. But they saw that there was a very large number of thieves in front of them. And then there was these stairs that led up to this upper balcony, which ran around the other edge of the back end of the giant room, and that had like a door in it as well that presumably led off to the office. All these thieves, you know, they gave it a bit of the old Dick Van Dyke and Oi Geezer and Oi Attack, and this sort of thing happened. So much talking today makes you dry. It's one thing to try and GM for a load of hours, but it's another thing to try and talk about it on the same day, about all the GMing you just did for hours. Oh dear. Right. So then, all the thieves attack, and there are masses of them. They're vastly outnumbered. At this point, it is just a, if you successfully hit, the kind of damage you do will take them out of the fight, either killing them or injuring them so much that they can't continue the fight. The plan was to hold at the doorway. It was a fairly large doorway that could take 2 men abreast, and Tanadol and Ash and Amelia all wanted to try and hold it. So Ash squeezed himself forward in the end, while Tanadol and Amelia held the door together, and Karak followed up behind and started sort of like doing his blasty wand type thing attacks over their shoulders at the guys. And they're knocking a few of them down, and they don't want them to all escape out. So they create that blockade. It's a small frontage so that it vastly limits what the thieves can create as base-to-base contact. But this is a whole room full of rogues, so loads of PS armor stunts were coming up here. And they were using the set 3 gang mentality stuff as well, so brigand thug type things as well. So they decide to engage who they can. One of them managed to get a skirmish off temporarily and break through, and skirmish Black Tower out of the way and break through and start attacking Karak. There was 1 or 2 sort of that were doing this at one point. That got a bit nasty, and Karak eventually found himself, funnily enough, going into a pretty bad way, like a sort of dying mode type thing. Had to be rescued last minute. This, of course, happened a touch later, but they almost lost Karak right there and then. And when you think about it, normally where he's been like in his dying mode and they try and chuck a potion down his neck, it's he has to do the roll to check to see he doesn't choke on it. Well, this time he rolled really badly and it would have been a choke. But for my group, I use these dragon points, which means that they get however many dragon points for whatever their level is. But once they've used one, it doesn't come back unless they roll a natural 18 on a proper roll within game. So not like a damage roll or something like that. It's got a test roll, and or an attack, which is a test. So they're kind of a rare commodity, but it allows you to a re-roll effectively, and he managed to re-roll just enough to be okay this time. And because what I very often do is I'll if I need a figure really fast, random, a target number, I will take 3d6, roll them, and add 4 to it, depending on the difficulty. If it's kind of like relative difficulty, medium, I'll just say add 4 to it. I could scale it up. I could add 6 or 7 to it if I wanted to be a real sod. But sometimes it gives you low amounts, and it gives you interesting values to play with a situation when it might not be like that next time. This time it needed a 12 in the drinking ability for him not to choke, and his original roll was 11, so he was about to choke to death pretty much, and he was about to go from like -1 to -19, be almost beyond resuscitation. But you know, he did his Dragon Diary roll thing, and he managed to swallow the tincture, and that was him fine. But I don't know, from almost losing Karak, managing to close the gaps back up, we had a problem. Ashad had charged into the room, committed himself as an open body. The thieves had already run across and taken up as much space as they could at the door. Amelia and Tanadal's low amount of coverage at the door was working wonders. It was really limiting how many of the thieves could get in, but it left Ash, who pushed forward, stranded. Now this very same thing happened back in the graveyard, you might remember, all the way back with the Sanguinary Rose. Remember this? Where they met Bolheim, a Talbashoth, funnily enough. Similarly, and he pushed a bit forward, one of Pete's new characters. And he died in his first scene, in his first combat encounter. That was he got split up there. You remember this? And the zombies all dragged him down that time. Well, this time it was thieves, and they were all on Chris's character. There was multiple attacks, and it was literally as many as we could get miniatures around. It's pretty bad. It was just weight of attacks, pure weight of attacks. Carrick managed to get a heal in on Ashad, stand him back up again, because they'd already put him down to like 0 health. And the fear was, they're going to try and coup de grace him. So, he gets this heal on him, which is fine. That's nice. But then they still don't offer up new targets. They still don't do any threaten stunts. They still don't try and take any of them off of Ash. At this point, Chris realizes, I've kind of screwed up, haven't I? I've ran into the room and I've made myself bait. I've given them no one else they can attack. I'm literally fighting like 10 guys at once. So there's no way you're going to be able to out heal me, and they were going to have to like fight their way through what was going on at the doorway. Now, this fight was on a timer. It says in the book that Rannick turns up and breaks the fight up. I rolled for this to see how many rounds the fight was going to go on for. So I was really watching Ashad at this point, saying, wow, this is getting close. I wonder if they can keep him in there. So then they decide that they all decide to keep attacking Ashad and put him back down into a dying mode, effectively. Now, Amelia said, well, look, I know it's out of my character's turn. Is there anything I can do, though, to try and save Ashad before the inevitable happens? And the first character was going to run forward and was going to coup de grace him maybe, and he did his will roll to check, and no, he was interested in someone else pass, but it still was a gap, a free guy that wasn't doing anything. So he was going to run forward and he was going to finish off Ash. And I said, look, if you want to try and do something here, it's going to require you to push about 5 of them away in opposed strength might tests, and it's out of sequence, so you're going to have to really pull something amazing here. So you're going to require 5 of your dragon points, 5 of them, and succeed in 5 opposed strength might tests, Amelia, if you want to try and keep them off of poor Ashad. And the player decided, that is a really difficult cost. Do you want me to do it? And Chris said, well, don't do it on my account. You'll probably need them. Chris is a nice lad. I got myself into this. I'll try and hang on through it. Well, the guy came along. This is set 3 you're in now, guys. The chances of getting finishers on you when you're lying prone and surrounded, very high. So, just more and more clubs just beating on him, drain the life out of him, beat him to death, basically. Brute force trauma. We lost a character. Chris lost his first character in the group. Ashad, the Kunari, died in this battle. And just after he died, I let Laurie know this horrible news that if he'd have tried to interject there, that the fight was about to end, because then Rannick stepped in and said, look, stop what you're doing, everyone, and all the thieves were called off, and that was that. I knew that the group only had to hold out. They were thinking in terms of, we still need to beat everyone. It's a horde encounter, but we still need to beat everyone. And it was pretty bad. They were outnumbered. But I knew it was going to be bad, but only for a little while. So, in that way, it was fairly balanced. Someone dies, doesn't mean it's not balanced, you know. It just means the player made a mistake. If your players can make a mistake in a dangerous situation, and you start fudging things so that you guarantee they won't die if the dice were to say... the dice in realism were to say that they would, then you're really holding their hands and taking away, you know, all risk and pretense of danger. And I think that's a good wake-up call for the group when they lose someone else. Makes them realise, you know, they've got to be on form. They've got to be ready. So they realise, oh, we've lost him. At this point, Pete turns up, both in real life and in game. And he turns up eating a snack, saying, what did I miss? And he said, where have you been? Dre turns up here, the elf shapeshifter mage, and he says, well, I had to get something to eat. Real sort of laid back. And it was at this point I stopped and I said, there's an awful lot of dead bodies around here, you know. Isn't there, Dre? And you remember back from that Fade dungeon castle thing you went into, where the Diablo-esque thing, okay? You remember you got the man-eater greaves and you decided to take them? You were going to wear them? You know, they give you the +1 defense. You know, that benefit, that nice gain that you've been benefiting from. Well, you've got bodies all around you, you know. He couldn't resist himself, of course. They are cursed. He knows that they create cannibalism. And the curse set off in him. He ran into the room, fell to his knees, and starts nomming one of the dead thieves. Pulling, you know, biting him with his teeth and eating. The group was just stare at this, and they are horrified there. They can't believe what they are seeing. At this point, they say, stop him, somebody do something. You know where this is going, don't you? People that have followed these videos, you know what's going to happen next. So Karak attacks Dre. At this point, I am laughing so hard because, you know, it's Pete's choice to take the man-eater greaves, you know, to cause all of this. And he's acting against his character. He knew it was always going to be a danger. As soon as it was going to have these bodies around, he's going in and starts chomping. Karak attacks him. Amelia steps in and attacks him. She starts trying to hack him off, knock him off. You know, they're really being very severe to him. You know, he doesn't feel like one of the old timers in the group after all. You know, he's still sort of like weird outsidery type guy, and now he's eating someone alive. Well, no, not quite alive, but you know, maybe he did still have a heartbeat for all we know. You know, maybe he wouldn't now. And they're doing masses and masses of damage to him. And then collectively, between Tanador and Harold the Red Lion, they put out something ridiculous like 62 damage all told. And Dre only came in the room with like 30 something health. And I'll let the player make a last minute appeal to not get cut down by Tanador. And he says, look, if you don't kill me, I'll take my trousers off for you. Essentially, because it's the Greaves. Look, I'll take the bloody things off. Alright? They're saying, no, you take your trousers off for me. So, we're about to finish him. And I looked at Pete, Pete looked at me, and we both nodded and said, it's time, isn't it? So then, Dre was carrying his own secret. There's so many problems with these players. You know, they've got so much baggage and circles within circles. And it was Dre's turn again now. He's cursed. There was a time ago when he was going to be one of the apprentices to a keeper, and I forget the trickster god's name now, but the elf trickster god, the wolf, the one that imprisoned all the elf gods and goddesses somewhere, tricked them all into getting trapped. He appeared to Dre and infected him with a werewolf curse. But, you know, it was a god that did it. So, you know, he served the trickster, and, you know, he was all ready to have to pay in on this. And it was, I always thought to myself, it's going to be interesting when we finally do Riddling Reaver, because Reaver works for the trickster god. So, you know, he's an agent of similar chaos. So, would they get on, or would they be competing for their master's approval? Does Dre even really want this? To him, it's kind of more like Dr. Banner, you know, that in tense situations he tries to hold on and not let this thing take over. But now, when the group are wailing on him and about to finish him off, he loses all control. The player knew that this was going to happen, and I agreed with him that this is exactly what would happen. The beast would emerge to protect itself. So, he transforms there and then into this massive werewolf. Huge thing. Bigger than the usual werewolf, just this. And then the team think, right, we've got to come up with a plan here in the Thieves Guild. I mean, Rannick's watching all of this. He's seen all of this happen. A guy come in, start eating one of his men, and then turn into a werewolf. He's off. He's running. He's not sticking around. He knows that they're brass investigator people, but he's not sticking around with all this shit going on. So, he's off to doing his runner thing, and they forgot about Rannick. They're far off the story again. This is all intergroup crap going on. And so Pete is a huge wolf form. Amelia steps forward, doesn't attack on him, knocks him prone, and then walks away out of the door. Alright? Out of the door. So she's gone. And then Carrack's trying to get out of the door. And the wolf form is up, the werewolf form is up, races over to the door, grabs Carrack, pulls him back in with a skirmish with his claws, and tears at him a bit. Puts him in a fairly bad way like that. But then Amelia and people still have to venture back in, knock him down again. And the plan was, he's too big to come back. He won't fit through the door, basically. So we'll just all get outside. It was a really clever plan. we'll all get outside, and he'll be stuck in the building as his big wolf form. Then we'll be able to try and bring him down with ranged damage. What a plan. Clever, impressive. And that's what you want to see. You want to see creative thinking, don't you, from your team? Well, you know, Dre the werewolf didn't want any of this. He wasn't prepared to let people go. He was still fighting and hanging on for all he was worth. And it was around about at this time that Karak decided he wanted to try to imprison Dre, lock him down somehow. Now, he's got Shape Earth, and we've spoken before about Shape Earth and some of the things that, you know, he could try and do with it. And whenever he wants to cast a major version of it and like do something particularly big and excellent with it, when I'm prepared to allow it, I normally say, right, okay, if you want to cast do something on this scale with Shape Earth, then you have to cast essentially multiple versions of the spell. In this case, like 9 casts of it. Okay, and any roll of a triple, success or failure, will cause the stunt table to go off. The miscast table to go off. Any roll of a triple. Pretty bad, right? So yeah, you could get like 666 and still be for it. Still have to be rolling. And wouldn't it have been funny if he'd have like gone abomination? Because one of both players would have changed into things and been maybe potentially attacking each other. And it's almost like something from Bleach, isn't it? You know, they've changed and you're expecting this is not even my final form. And the other person would be like, hey, that's my line. Oh, cliches. Why'd you do it to me though, Japan? Right, so anyway, then funny stuff, he decides to imprison him using the stone of the ground and have it all rise up into like an enveloping structure of stone bands that come up around him, and he rolls the 9 times, takes times 9 mana off, doesn't roll triples at all, and succeeds on all the casts. So I let it go through because it was pretty harsh, you know. The danger of rolling triples, pretty nasty. And had he rolled triples more than once, each one of those would have been another roll on the miscast. So you know, any of those effects could have happened because you know you're pushing your luck. You're pushing your luck with magic, and you know he's a pretty powerful guy. And I try and encourage the recklessness to go wrong. That's exactly what magic is. It's extremely powerful and very, very dangerous if you push it too far. He's got away with it so far, and he managed to cast this. Now, everybody, what is Karak's artistic signature? Oh, come on now. You know. No, you know, don't you? That's right. It's cock and balls, isn't it? It's cock and balls. Again with the cock and balls, but this time, he left us in no doubt about those cock and balls, because he made the imprisoning pieces rising out of the ground to lock around and trap the werewolf in out of cocks. And I said, I had to work out how many dice he was going to have to roll, you know, how many times. And I said, are you having the balls as well? And he said, of course I'm having the balls, you know, I want stability around the bottom. I said, well, that's going to be more dice. GMs have to deal with this, because this is what I have to deal with. Shit. He imprisoned him in a prison of dicks made out of stone. And he he drew a picture of it on a card and said I should show all of you. You ready to see it? Oh God! Right, this is this is the prison, and there's Dre in werewolf form. It's too much. Too much. He also drew another picture of the wizard's tower that he wants to build for himself in Dinner. Are you ready for this one? This is the wizard's tower. He's got it sketched out ready for himself. I'm losing it. Pete was saying, are you gonna have a water feature? Maybe coming out of the top. So, anyway, I don't know about derailing the adventure. They derailed me. Oh God. Oh God. Right, okay. Anyway. Water, Robert. Water. Dear. Control. Composure. Okay. So, they've got him imprisoned in this. He decides, I'm going to try and get my way out. You know, he starts throwing himself against the bars of these cocks and manages to snap one of them and starts working on another one and stunt point lethal blowing at it and trying to work at the shaft to try and break it. And then the guys are running forward and like, stabbing him through the bars. Carax decides, I'm going to reform that one that's just broke, so we'll take the risks again and put it back in place. And you know, he keeps trying to break them down. The teams keep coming forward and stabbing. Then they eventually take him down. Now, Dre, werewolf form, might have tried to run out of the building, but it would have meant him, you know, thinking to do that. I wasn't going to tell him to attempt that. Obviously, the doorway was quite small. It was big, but you know, small for his form. He would have had to try and bust through the archway, and it would have been relevant tests and strength, and however much the archway would have had as hit points on it and what have you, the opening. But there was another possibility that he was thinking too, of maybe like running back into the building and up the steps and into that what was possibly the office and trying to find a window to jump out of and then try and get their scent and go back after them, because he's loose and he's trying to kill the group at this point. And everyone's laughing and they think this is absolutely hilarious, and obviously Craig's drawings that accompanies all of this as well. And he didn't get a chance, obviously, because he's imprisoned, surrounded by cocks. So yeah, it almost sounds like a Julian Clary bad dream. Would it be a good dream for him? I don't know anymore. Right, so anyway, they take him out. He changes back into Dre. Tanador says, screw that, you know, I'm not having that hanging over me. He's still in his dying form, Dre. He goes in, pops his top off, you know, beheads him. Pops his top off, as the group like to say. Pop his top off. So yeah, look at these things. So that okay, they've taken him out. That's 2 players down. So Pete's lost his, and the real threat is still to come. Rannick's nowhere to be seen. He's obviously the contact they need. So they try to find him. They try their tracking. They try all sorts of things. They can't find him. Luckily, they've got Blacktail and his superb dog nose. He manages to pick the trail up and lead them to Rannick. Rannick is freaking out when they find him. He's saying, look, I've seen all this bad shit happen around you. I don't want you even near me. Alright, just keep away. And they say, look, we just want to know where the priests of Elim are, okay? Just tell us that. And he says, well, I've got less men now. I won't be able to get straight onto it. Give us a couple of hours. And they said, well, alright. We'll be at the Dragon's Tooth Inn. Make sure they're there. The team had a lot of their stuff stolen as well, weren't they? During their lengthier than it was supposed to be stay at the Thieves' Den. Several gold down. Nothing they could really do about that, because when you walk into a Thieves' Den, things will happen to you, and it looks like they're even fighting you. They're probably robbing you. And yeah, Rannick said, right, I'll find you there. I'll find the information you need, alright? And then we're done. I don't want anything more to do with you. So, they go off back to the Dragon's Tooth Inn. At this point, Tanner decides, I'm going to find out what's happening with our guards. So, Gregor at this point, and the other Brandy contact, have come up with the information of where these guards are living. They are currently living at the guardhouse, but they've also got the addresses for their family homes. Alright, so Tannerl's going to decide, well, he was going to kill their family and them. Big monster barbarian that he is. But he decided to use subtlety this time. So he wrote their addresses down on some paper, found an urchin, paid him a gold, and said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the guardhouse, find these 2 people, and say, the Avar barbarian sent me, and he wants me to give you this. So, you were going to go for that, like, implied threat approach, which is okay. So the urchin goes, and then after some time he comes back. He's white, as white as a ghost, pale, shaking. He produces the note and gives it back to Tanador. He says, look, I went to the guardhouse and it was terrible. There were dead city watch all over the place. And these 2 ugly guys were pinned up to the wall dead. And it looked like their bodies were cut into and burnt where the cuts were. Instantly the group said, doesn't Squire have one of those flaming swords? So they all pretty much determined it must have been Squire has killed them. What? Okay. So they didn't really expect this either, and they had to think on this. And then eventually Rannick came back and gave them the address of the temple and said, right, that's it, you go off to it. I'm not having anything else to do with you. So they're all ready to depart and go off to the temple. And that's where the session ended. So the players had to roll something new. Going to come in on entry level number 10 with 36,000 experience. And Chris, who formerly played Ashad, the Kunari, had to roll something new. He fancied rolling a mage. I think it's a human mage. So he's gone down that route. Another mage in the party. Pete has rolled a new character. He's decided to take on ownership of Old Yellow Eye. Remember? One of Scarbelly's pirate men. And he wasn't killed in the encounter, and they're basically going to go to him and say, look, your captain is dead now, or at least rumours going around that Scarbelly is dead. Come work with us, you're not such a bad fellow, you're just following orders. We need all the help we can get, we're going to try and bring these priests down, and what have you. So, then, he's agreeing to that because, it's another contract and these guys are too dangerous to say no to. They took out Scarbelly. You don't say no to these guys. But, he's going to get to play a swarthy old pirate rogue who also happens to be a Kunari. Yes, Kunari rogue pirate. Why not? Why not? Indeed. Indeed. And he's rolled himself with the marksman talent. Yay for set 3. Go, get in, get in. As for Chris with his mage, by the way, he's rolled a arcane warrior. So, Chris's character doesn't have a name yet, and Pete's one is obviously Old Yellow Eye. And he was saying how there's actually a demon with that name, and I said, oh, that must make you very happy, mustn't it, Pete, you macabre soul? That's what he's like. He's got some pretty good focuses and skills that fit the bill there. So I think he's going to try and be the group's rogue, because they really haven't had a rogue in quite a long time. Because even Pete's rogues were like monks and things like that. They weren't really full-on rogue skilled ones. And the last like properly dedicated roguish rogue was Gabe, of course, and he's still currently being trained in blind fighting by the Grey Wardens. Well, anyway, that's where we left up. 2 new people in the team. A mage who's going to have to find some way of joining the group as an arcane warrior mage, and of course Old Yellow Eye. A pirate's life for some, with just use the background basically of the Waking Sea Raider, which is one of the set 3 things as well. So good stuff. It's arrived at the right time, hasn't it? Yay for that. So that's where we are. A pretty amazing session. Session 60. And hopefully the next one we'll actually be able to finish things off. Who knows? So, conversion notes below and all that nonsense. And until the next one, I'll see you at the table.